You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. So we spent pretty much the bulk of the show on Wednesday talking about the early signing period. And if you missed the crux of my comments, it was basically quality over quantity to lay the foundation. And LSU most certainly did that. And we also have talked for many, many weeks about how LSU is going to continue losing more players and gaining more players. It's the nature of what happens when you have a coaching change and you have that type of turnover. It's just the nature of it. We learned that Elias Ricks is transferring to Alabama last night, which really was a turd in the punch bowl on an otherwise really positive day. And today, we also learned that Trey Palmer is entering the transfer portal and won't be available for the bowl game, and LSU lost another player. But most importantly, LSU gained a couple of players, and one of them is a familiar face. If you missed the news today, Myles Brennan announced he will return to LSU, and FIU All-American offensive lineman Miles Frazier announced that he is committing to LSU. So a huge get at two massive positions of need for LSU. If you go through this timeline here with Myles Brennan, this is just obviously just massively significant. Back on November the 1st, Myles Brennan, with a post on social media, announced that he was entering the transfer portal, foregoing the remainder of his time at LSU, and essentially expressing his love and appreciation for everything LSU, but then obviously was looking for an opportunity to start. So he left. That was November the 1st. And last week, as we saw reports that Myles Brennan was being courted by Southern Miss and Nebraska and some other programs, we saw this very sort of cryptic post on his Instagram story, which is sort of like a light whitewashed image, black and white image, like clouded in smoke of Myles Brennan, where you can really just see his helmet, his LSU helmet, and the ball being thrown from his hand. It was a very cryptic post with no text or context anywhere, just that image on his Instagram story. That was a week ago. It was last Thursday when he tweeted that. And then sometime between last Thursday and today, apparently Myles Brennan and Brian Kelly had a conversation, because Myles Brennan today at 11:01 a.m. Central Time tweeted, "There's no place like home. Let's ride Tiger Nation." And he had the video from The Wolf of Wall Street, the I'm Not Leaving video, which is actually really well done. So a nice job there by Myles Brennan to emphatically announce that he's returning to LSU for a fifth season. And the way the story has unfolded is apparently Brian Kelly realized he was going to have to go into the portal to get a quarterback. So he could go find one, or he could get Myles Brennan. Talked to Myles Brennan, said, "I want you back," and Myles Brennan agreed. It seems like it's that simple as of right now. But this is fantastic news that really doesn't need to be explained. I'll say it again right now, there was no chance at all that LSU was going into the 2022 season with only Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard. You cannot intentionally go into a season with two scholarship quarterbacks. You're a turned ankle away from having a walk-on as your backup. You can't do it. And Brian Kelly was going to have to go get a transfer some way. We debated earlier this week, should it be Keaton Slovis? Should it be Zach Calzada? Should they go after, Cameron Ward from Incarnate Word? Like, what actually fits? Who makes sense? I mean, that was the conversation we were having earlier this week. The best option would have been one of the guys you had, either Max Johnson or Myles Brennan, and they ended up settling here on Brennan, a guy that's been in Baton Rouge since 2017, committed before his senior year of high school, committed to Cam Cameron and Les Miles, y'all, when he was still a seldom thought after prospect They saw him, liked him, offered him. Then he goes to the opening, blows up, becomes a 4-star that everybody started offering. Les Miles and Cam Cameron, y'all. That's like a ghost of LSU's past that's still tied here with Brennan. That's how long he's been part of our lives. I mean, I remember sitting at Pluckers doing a remote when then LSU commit Myles Brennan came on the show and told the story of how his family in Bay St. Louis was so disrupted by Hurricane Katrina, and they lived on a boat for a year in Destin and only went back to the Mississippi coast because it was time for him and his brother to play football. And he talked about the injury his brother had at Ole Miss and him coming up through Stanislaus and all of it. I mean, it's been a long time that Brennan's been part of our lives, and this has a little bit of a Hollywood movie script feel to it, that after all of the time waiting, having the opportunity to play in that loss to Troy back in 2017, then really riding the bench the rest of the season. Except I think he had mop-up duty in the game against Alabama that year with the Matt Canada year in 2017. And then voluntarily taking the red shirt in 2018 to preserve a year while Burrow came in, waited his turn, sat behind Burrow in 2019 for a championship season. Finally, it was his turn in 2020. He comes out with great statistics the first 3 games, but ultimately has the injury against Missouri, cost him the rest of the season. And before this season even pushes off from the dock, well, that's an unintentional pun, he breaks his arm on a fishing trip. I mean, to have entered the portal and then to have seen Max Johnson enter the portal, clearing the path back to LSU, is just the kind of thing that's abnormal. It's atypical and unusual at very least. But here it is. You have a veteran quarterback that knows this place, that knows the culture, that knows the roster, that knows the receivers, that is a team leader, that's been around, that's hoisted a championship trophy, has a rapport with these guys. It makes a lot of sense instead of trying to bring in someone new to be your leader for 1 year before you hand the reins to one of the younger guys. And I'll remind you of this as well. It's especially apropos today when we have a story of a guy like Elias Ricks leaving LSU for Bama that has a lot of people upset. When Myles Brennan broke his arm all the way back before fall camp, his dad, Owen Brennan, went on WWL radio and said this about his son.
He was getting ready to compete for this job starting on Friday, and I assure you, whatever other Friday he shows up, he's going to be competing for the job. And he wants to finish his career at LSU as a starting quarterback. Whatever avenue that is, whatever path that takes, that's his goal.
How appropriate. Whatever avenue, whatever path. This is certainly an avenue and a path less traveled, but it's one that has led to that goal of Myles Brennan finishing his career as the starting quarterback at LSU, and he's going to have the opportunity to win that job in spring, which I presume he will, over Nussmeier. And as we've told you before, Walker Howard is very willing to take a red shirt. I don't think his dad wants him playing as a true freshman, understanding the perils of what can come of being a young guy playing in the SEC. It's better to learn and grow and develop and all that sort of stuff. It's a really perfect scenario for Myles Brennan to finish his career and see what he can do as a starter at LSU, the opportunity he waited for so long, and also the opportunity to let the young talent continue to grow and cultivate into this new system under Brian Kelly. It is a really good bridge between these two eras. And great to see Myles Brennan back at LSU, here to finish his career the way we all hoped that he'd be able to as a starting quarterback at LSU. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.